Thank you for tuning back into Progressive Broadcast. This is Elijah again. This is just my second installment in um, the Bill Maher saga, and just seeing what he's doing here. Just wanted to talk a moment. Tune in. My first video was on him and Charlemagne, talking about reparations, and now he has a different gentleman on there, David Snow. I looked into him a little bit. He seems to be a data scientist, graduated from, I believe, Florida State. Just seems to be like a analytical guy. Worked for Obama's campaign, I believe, in 2012. And we brought him on here apparently to talk about, you know, woke being liberal and versus liberal, and what this guy thought was Democrats were doing wrong, apparently. So wanted to get the analytical guy's version of what the Democrats could do to widen the base and get more people. So I thought that was a great person to bring on there, Bill. So if you can catch my sarcasm there. And so more or less just wanted to dive into this video here. So just a quick, about 40 seconds of that, and then I'm going to give my 2 cents on the whole situation here.
That they should be winning.
You know, I think the big thing.
Defund the police. Could you come up with a more drive away the voters phrase than that? For example,
you know,
just to take one.
Crime is really unpopular. If you're going to give political advice, you know, I think that the core problem here is that as the party has become more educated, educated people have increasingly defined, you know, the brand of the Democratic Party. And like one thing I like to say is a lot of people will say it's like a truism in politics that Democrats are too wonky, you know, we're eggheads, you know, we talk too much about issues, we need to communicate our values. But, you know, the median voter doesn't share our values. Our values are weird and alien. If they had our values, they would be liberals. The only way Democrats historically won elections was by, you know, talking about concrete issues that people agreed with us on. It's how Bill Clinton won. It's how, you know, Barack Obama won. And, you know, I think that was one of Joe Biden's strengths.
So,
what are these values you think the average voter doesn't share?
Yeah, so I just wanted to take a moment to go over that and, kind of talk about, how crazy it is that we have Bill Maher, on here discussing Black issues with a gentleman that isn't Black, talking about defund the police and police reform, and then basically more or less calling them non-issues, saying that the mass people do not deal with them. And when you look back, I don't know much about this guy here, but when you look at Bill Maher, he's born in New York City. His dad was an editor. His mother was a nurse in New York City. He graduated from Cornell University. And when you look at all those type of things, you're saying, so you obviously grew up in a pretty solid household. You are a white male growing up in New York, graduated from Cornell University, who all of a sudden chose to go into comedy. So you obviously were pretty cushy, felt that you had multiple options in different avenues. When you also look into, I was reading just a little bit on your Wikipedia here, it talks about how you were, you said that you were selling weed. And I would say that type of stuff just proves that, not that I care that people say weed, but I just proves how comfortable you were to be doing that in the 70s. You knew that you weren't going to get in trouble. And I would say that shows right then and there the difference. Many people, if they would have been put in that same situation, if they were African-American or Hispanic and they were raised in New York City in their conditions, and then came over to Cornell University and studied in English, they would not be slanging on the side. Just putting in my personal 2 cents on that. And I also wanted to talk about more in depth. They wanted to talk about defund the police. Who do you think gave that name? Do you think that was something that the people came up with it on their own and really pushed it, or do you think that was something that the major news medias were coming up with, the Foxes, the CNNs, the MSNBCs, to kind of make it a good title, a good something that people could be afraid of, and if you weren't afraid of it, you're going to be interested in it and intrigued. So you're going to look into it either way. I would say that is how that was started. And you clearly are missing the point on this. You do not understand anything when it comes to the modern issues of younger people, the modern issue of people of color, and I don't understand where you're trying to lay your stake at, where you're trying to end up on all this is fine, bringing people on just to prove your point with various topics. Also want to talk about the gentleman mentioned Bill Clinton and how Bill Clinton was very popular for what he did. And as far as his bill, so the 94 crime bill, Hillary Clinton had to run from that as far as she possibly could. Joe Biden had to run from that as far as he possibly could. Anybody who voted for that is one of the biggest stains next to their name. And that's one of the biggest things that he had accomplished early on and people loved him for. And so I would say that's what happens when the Democrats are falling subject to the Republican ideas, trying to keep Republican, trying to get just as much of those suburb voters as they can, instead of really hammering home, trying to bring in as many new people into the party that believe what you believe versus going and changing your ideology to get a bigger bubble. There's no point in winning if you have to win with a bunch of people who don't agree with anything that you agree with. That's my personal 2 cents on that. And I would say, so let's just kind of more and more with the Bill Maher thing. I'm going to try to keep this up every time he drops a new video that's, I believe, a little shameful. I'm going to try to get that going. So I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you.